at some point, when you know Jamaica is there for the taking, and we were talking about that second goal was begging, you have to have that sixth sense that now we go. And I just thought that once you had that 15-minute stretch, I was just waiting for that little change of pace, that little extra. They were playing as if it was 3-0.
Their first away clean sheet win since October 7th, 2016 against Cuba. But here's a look at the match by the numbers. U.S. leading in possession there, but only 6 shots all night, 3 of those on target. But if one goes in, that's enough.
Yes.
I think overall a pretty positive performance from the United States. But Charlie Davies, thinking of it as a whole, what was your initial reaction to this performance last night?
I was pleased. I was happy that we saw an identity starting to form with this group. And sure, it was 1-0 and it wasn't the most beautiful throughout minute 1 to 90, but when it's all said and done, I like the movement out of midfield. I like how Ricardo Pepi took his opportunity early. The early goal changed the dynamic of this game drastically because Jamaica then couldn't do what we saw in the Nations League.
How did
score early.
Score early, and it was intensity. No, what was it?
Intensity and tempo.
Tempo, that was it.
And Jamaica, to start this game, were pressing. And you could see the U.S., all right, we're going to play through it on a really crappy pitch.
Yeah.
Right?
Other words for it.
It was a dog park.
And it was a little rusty, and then the U.S. grew into it. And I also talked about yesterday, Suze, possession with a purpose, get them to chase. And Jamaica was tired. They were chasing the game. But then around the 55th minute, after it had started to look so good, you could see the U.S. started to lose momentum. And I thought, okay, Poch, I can see this. I know you can see this. You got to start making some changes. I thought the changes came a little bit late, and it was probably due to the imbalance of Tillman coming in for Johnny Cardoso because Tillman doesn't want to play deep in midfield. And they were playing in a 3 with it's basically like a 3-2-4-1. That's what it looked like. But Tillman didn't want to play deep. And so when he's pushing forward, that kind of unbalances the midfield, and they dropped a little bit because they were protecting the lead. And so in the end, it's a real CONCACAF match. The heat, the crappy pitch, but there was beauty in the way that they got the job done. And so they head home now with a 1-0 win, and for me, I was pleased with what I saw.
Go ahead.
No, I agree with everything you said, Chuck, and I just want to add this sprinkle of a caveat. We questioned the grit of this U.S. men's national team under Greg Berhalter. We questioned the grit in Mexico, where they got just played off the park and beaten up against Mexico, and I think that was answered a bit more today, or last night, where they suffered through the difficult moments, but they bent, but they didn't break. And so if you can have the resilience, and Chuck, you've been there, and I've been there in Africa, where when you play away from home, it is the most difficult thing to do in international football. But to survive those difficult moments, you can build confidence no matter where you go.
And definitely a strong defensive performance from the U.S. Alexis, what did you like about this win?
I mean, first of all, I completely agree with everything Charlie said, and I completely agree with everything you said. I'm a little bit more worried about the bending and not breaking because I do think there were moments where there was cracking. You know, there's a little bit more duct tape on this than I prefer now after the match, especially in the second half, where as soon as they start to foul Christian Pulisic very hard, I think it was Lowe who, you know, I think scrapes his stamps on his hand or scrapes his hand, really messing with him and sort of saying like, yeah, I'll take the yellow. I understand what I'm doing. We're trying to mess him up. I think they lost momentum in that moment. I agree with you that, you know, Malik Tillman being that, you know, that deep line playmaker is not exactly his role. When he came in, I was under the impression he would switch with Musa. It just made sense. Bring Musa in more defensively. And part of me is wondering...
McKinney, right?
Or McKinney, exactly.
Right.
And part of me is wondering, like, all right, am I still thinking about the way Berhalter would have handled this? So I'm trying to give myself, and I'm trying to give Pochettino that grace of saying, like, all right, show me what your plan is. And I think that's why he waited so long to make those decisions. Say, let me see how these guys, you know, play through this tough situation.
Deal with adversity.
Exactly. Let me see what changes they make before I have to go and make all the changes. So those moments, I'm like, half of me is upset or worried, and the other half of me is like, I like what you're doing, bro. So I'm kind of confused. But we didn't lose, and we got a clean sheet since we played Goa.
2016.
That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous.
Yep.
So, hey, I'm happy that we have the result, but some of those worrying signs, I want to see what happens as we move forward.
Yep. All right, Charlie, I'm going to send you to the wall. You're going to give us a little breakdown of what the U.S. did well when they were playing out of the back, correct?
Let's do it. Yes.
Let's do
Show me.
it.
Let's go.
I love a Davies deep dive.
I love a deep dive as well. So a lot of people are questioning that. How are you so positive? Well, let me show you how I was so positive. Let's get to it. So early in the game, 24th minute, you can see Jamaica starting to put pressure. I love Tessman's position, and I love how the U.S. were giving good angles, but this is what we saw a little bit. Two players running into the same space. So Weston checking into where Tessman was. Now you're bringing players into the space that you didn't need to. And this was kind of the product of that miscommunication, which is what happens early on. But now we move forward. They're going into the game. Look at Tillman. So we talked about him being deep. Where does he like to be? Look at the movement. I love how Pepe's occupying the center back, so he can't come over here. You have the width here from Musa, and look at, this is that space you want to get into. And good movement in the box. You have different runs, near post and far post. So that was encouraging for me. Again, we're seeing good ball movement, and also they were playing with a little bit more tempo than we've seen them play with the past. One touch, two touch, and look at Scally playing forward passes. I love it. And then reset. Okay, what do we got? I loved how they were moving around. You could see Tessman was always finding those nice pockets. Comes back. I thought Matt Turner was very solid with his feet in this game as well. Tillman now dropping back, like we said. And then McKenzie, I don't want to see sideways. I don't want to see safe. I want to see playing into the channel. And look, Weston McKennie, nice and high up there. Ricardo Pepi running there. Those were all encouraging signs from the U.S. And so for me, I started to see the blueprint of what Pochettino really wanted to do with the back three and how that worked. And I was really encouraged. The width was great. Yunus Musa is not your typical winger. So the fact that he was high and making the outside backs have to honor that position, it was good, but he's not one of those guys that's going to be running at you and putting you on your heels. He likes to come inside. So it'll be interesting to see that dynamic change when Tim Weah is now in that position.
Did you like that in the beginning of that build-up where, I think it's McKenzie breaks basically two lines, and I can't remember who he plays it to the feet of, but they were in that that right mid-space or half space just at the top of the box, and he immediately sends it back. And I'm like, bro, we broke two lines. Like, turn, look for another option. To send it back into reset, part of me was like, am I just too anxious as I'm watching this game? Because if, you're going to play a team that's going to be so defensively stout, so disciplined, and they're going to collapse tight, if you break two lines, now there's somebody's open around you.
Well, that's part of the game, right? Is making them think that they're in control, and then you break the lines, then they all panic, and you say, no, we got you, we're going to come back. And then they go, and then they got to move forward.
Right.
So you're just trying to continue to get them to move and shift. And it's so mentally draining that at some point, 1, 2, 3 players shut down mentally.
Yeah.
And that's when they're exposed, and that's when you go for the jugular.
I'm with you, Alexis, and I see what you're saying. And as a midfielder, those were the most difficult moments when you feel like you have no influence on the match, but you get let off the hook. When you're Weston McKennie, you're in a half space. Okay, the first time it goes into that half space, you bounce it back. The second time, there was about a 15-minute stretch where the U.S., they were having their way. Out of the second half, they were having their way with Jamaica. Tillman, okay, champagne football. Tessman, champagne football, which I thought he had a good match as well.
Great match.
Center backs playing balls in the entry passes, but at some point, when you know Jamaica is there for the taking, and we were talking about that second goal was begging, you have to have that sixth sense that now we go. Now we go. And I just thought that once you had that 15-minute stretch, I was just waiting for that little change of pace, that little extra. They were playing as if it was 3-0.
Yeah.
It was 1-0. And Jamaica, they needed just a half chance to get back in the match, and they did around the 60th minute.
There was just a slight tentativeness.
I think this is just the early stages of what Mauricio Pochettino's trying to build here. So from that standpoint, you kept a clean sheet. You're playing away from home. Also, they did have their chances when Brandon Vasquez came in. He made a mess of 2 chances that normally you would find one in the back of the net.
Finishing not the strong suit in this match, but do you know what was Matt Turner, who came up big? And I know he drew the penalty, which was, he said it was the first time he's ever done that. But what a save. And he came up big in this one. We've had a lot of conversations about Matt Turner at this desk, especially this week. Charlie, what did he do last night that perhaps solidified his starting role?
Well, one, whenever you can save a penalty in an international match that matters. They all matter, but one that has consequence in terms of getting to a semifinal of the Nations League, that is massive. Sure, Mackenzie has to make the challenge.
He got to do better.
He was too soft. But this is massive. This is what wins you games. This is what keeps you alive, especially in tournaments. And Matt Turner you could say he's one of the top keepers that I've seen from the PK spot. You know you have a good chance when he's in goal. He made the right movements. I thought with his feet building out of the back. I thought he was also pretty confident with the ball at his feet. I really liked what I saw from him from the whole picture, not just that penalty save, but in terms of his presence, in terms of his decision making, playing with his feet, left foot, right foot. He came out of the box a couple of times to stop some of the long balls that were played in for Shamar
One of those worried me a little bit.
Oh,
one of those got me a little shook.
But he had to make that
He did,
play.
but I think we'd all agree he was kind of in no man's land there for a little bit.
I don't know if you're having chamomile tea during some of those plays where he's coming out. My heart was doing this when he came out, but I agree with you about the decision making. Anything inside the 18, he had complete control of the match. And we see this so often with U.S. goalkeepers in the last, say, 4 years, that once you have that big save, that monster save, especially from the spot, Chuck, and I thought you did an excellent job of conveying that, of the save, how massive it was. There was a moment when you see his body language where he just screams, just that exhalation of, okay, I'm back. This is my moment. I redeemed myself. And then the rest, it was history for 90 minutes.
Let's take a look at what we saw from the U.S. in possession. So Robinson would come all the way up here and keep the width. So it was almost like he was in line with Christian, who floated inside with McKinney to look like 210s, which I love because he was central. And he could kind of have the freedom to move like this, which Pepe finally had some support underneath him. Musa kept the width over there, and then Scally tucked inside. So you had the back three. Musa and Robinson were providing the width, and then these two were kind of sitting in behind in a box, 4-box, like so a nice box midfield. Now, when they had possession, you could see that these two players, he was mostly staying, but they had the freedom to make the runs, late runs out of midfield in behind Jamaica. So you started to see the combinations. And Matt Turner was very calm because he always had the 3 options here and then the 2 midfielders checking. So he had options to play forward and to play wide. And he felt more secure, I think, when he had more options, when it wasn't so predictable. And what we saw from Pepe is constant movement, but not involved all that much because most of the possession was within this box midfield or using the wide areas for Robinson and Musa. So what I liked most about McKinney now is he had the most passes in the first half into the final third. Yeah. So he had 6 passes into the final third. Tessman was phenomenal with his passing. I think he maybe it was 23 out of 25, something like that. He was phenomenal. And the best part about all of this was most of the play was forward. We were watching passes forward into tight spaces, playing without fear. That needed to happen, and the tempo was much quicker than we've seen over the past couple of windows where it was slow, it's too slow, taking 3 touches, 4 touches. A lot of it was 1 touch, 2 touch, and we saw the benefits of that.
Chuck, I'll give you your flowers, man, because I know yesterday we duped it. We went at it about Jonathan David. Thank God we don't have to talk about him till next week. But I do agree with you about the midfield movement, and I thought Tanner Tessman had a hell of a first start for the U.S. men's national team. In his relationship, he really held down the fort. Unlike Jamaica at different times, I was disappointed in this Jamaica national team. And they gave a better account of themselves, but how they started the game, they were a shell of themselves. And we made so much about them playing with the 2 wingbacks. When you play a back 5, it's to get width up. Dexter Labankisa, in the first half, he was all the way back here. You got to be up there if you're going to make an impact. Then it puts, and Damari Gray actually was on that side, but they're interchangeable, Damari Gray and Leon Bailey. But after missing the penalty, Damari Gray, he was just uncannily poor. And that's down to not playing enough, not playing at a quality league. Sorry, Saudi Pro League. I think it's having a bad impact on some players, and he's one of them with Al Hittifaq. And when you look at Leon Bailey, it was almost as if he got a new lease on life when he switched to this right-hand side, which he plays for with Aston Villa. But the two wingbacks, they were kind of more cautious. Steve McClaren, I think, was paying a lot of respect to what the U.S. men's national team were going to do. And Damian Lowe, he actually ended up playing as the central defender in the back five and in the back three, really. And at times, his job was to step under Weston McKennie. And as the match grew, he would step, actually, and try and get physical with Christian Pulisic. Now, Jamaica, what they did, subs often change games, and I thought the subs they made at halftime and into the second half really changed it. Isaac Hayden, who you said look out for, making his Jamaican national team debut, he slotted in to the middle of the park, and his one job was to get physical. And once he got physical, once he got stuck in on some tackles, then the football intelligence started to show. Getting on the half turn, playing passes, getting another player who came in, Ronaldo Cephas. He's got pace, man. I loved what I saw from him.
Such a threat. And Gregory Lee, the left back here, really struggled. If you're going to play a back five, you have to be connected. And the three were tight. So they're tight here defending, but these outside backs were left on an island, and there was no communication. Greg Lee kept Pepe onside on the goal. He was not connected with the back five. So in that case, I really liked how the U.S. took advantage of that in moments, but we also mentioned you have to have the killer instinct and put the game away.
Yeah.
But first game under Pochettino in this type of scenario, I liked what we saw for the most part.
Yeah, it goes back to the resilience factor, and we've both been in the trenches away from our national team destinations and homes, and it's not going to be pretty at times. And the U.S. men's national team, for your concerns, you can't play like this again, and I don't expect them to in this second leg. But when we look at one thing that we're going to see very soon, this was a game of momentum. They get the first goal, Jamaica gets into it with the penalty, and then second half, Jamaica gets into it.
You start to see it get a little bit more physical, and Jamaica came alive. They know you have to be a little bit more physical to get into the game, to try and disrupt the chemistry that the U.S. men's national team had, the flow, the rhythm. That's what teams, if you're lacking the quality, you make it up with intensity and the physicality. And so Jamaica started to gain that. And then you saw 71st minute, Pochettino said, all right, enough's enough. Vasquez, Busio, you're going on for McKennie and Pepe. And Vasquez,
Did you like those subs?
I did like those subs. But then you have to do, you have to take advantage of those opportunities.
Vasquez do in the past. It was a little frustrating to see him have so many opportunities that miss, and also seem a little bit off the mark in general. I think in his running,
it almost looked like he just never got settled. You come into a game and you put the pressure on yourself to do well, and Ricardo Pepi scored as well. That as a striker, that's always going to be in the back of your mind. The guy that you're competing with, your teammates, but you want that position. And you finally get the shot to get, and you're hoping, and he scores early, and you're going, oh, God, I have to match that at the very minimum. So you could see that he was so eager in that one ball where they give it away to Musa. Musa gives him a layup. He has all the time in the world, but he rushes it.
Yeah.
And the ball's behind him when he tries to take the shot, so he got no power on it. And in that moment, you feel for him because you said, we know you're better than that.
Yeah.
But you let the opportunity get the best of you.
What about the Tim Ream handball?
That's a handball all day. I am shocked. There's VAR there, mind you.
Charlie David.
I am absolutely shocked. That is his bicep. I don't care. And he's making a move towards the ball. Look, it's here. That's coming. That's arm to ball, not ball to arm, and that is his bicep. I don't know what else you need to see.
It's hard to tell, and I think that there's.
Let
me finish my sentence.
Are you crazy?
Let me finish my sentence.
Alexis.
Just let me finish my sentence. It's hard to tell if he doesn't get contact with the top of his sleeve, which technically isn't.
He's got long deltoids, Alexis?
We're talking about where your shoulder meets your armpit. It's not right here.
Right. Can you definitively
tell you that is the elbow / bicep.
It's skin. But there's no definitive.
Fill that man up with some cafecito. He needs it back. He's been in Miami too long.
But very quickly, the ref just waved it off and said, no, that was all shoulder. And even I was like, all right, that's what you saw.
That's where VAR says, stop. VAR VAR should say stop.
Yeah.
Let us watch this play, and they didn't. The play happened so quick. You don't have enough time to really go through every angle to go, oh yeah, that's clearly not a handball,
Right.
which is shocking.
Can we go back to one thing? You were talking about the intensity after the Damian Lowe foul. Clearly looks down, tries to stamp on his hand. He clearly threw his shoulder into him. Clearly he wanted to rattle Christian Pulisic. Are we not yet at a point where you know who I saw yesterday? I saw Gucci Onyewu. And I, as soon as he walks up, I'm like, man, this guy's still in shape. I would not mess with this guy.
He's still in shape.
You still got it, Gooch.
He's as fit as they come.
What in your era, that guy, if somebody tried to do that to you, somebody tried to do that to maybe a midfielder, all of a sudden Gucci Onyewu was in your face and you're not doing it anymore. Are we not yet at a point where this squad has that guy?
They did. Anthony Robinson.
Nah, they kind of got around it, but there was no one who was like, nothing's happening.
After Anthony Robinson won again.
Match? I have
the
a
ripped
distinct
jersey?
visual of
But
Yes, that was a retaliation after Serginho Dest as well. So remember, they both got red cards.
Right.
So they do have that, and it has happened. But they crossed the line.
Yeah.
Because even if a team is getting extra physical and trying to rough up Christian, you also have to be smart in the way that you approach it.
I get it.
And they have to anticipate that.
I'm looking for an enforcer.
You're looking for the old school brutality.
Not just brutality, but just that someone to look you in the eye and go, try it again. Just, I want that.
Can I do that at the desk?
Yeah. Shoulder bounce with it, though.
Were you doing that to me?
I'm scared, bro. The snooze is here.
Don't you do that again, brother.
She's doing the Tim Reed. Let me do it. Shoulder lead. No, I think that this has been such a good chat. I think mostly because the thing that I found interesting about that difficult stretch for the U.S. men's national team is you got to be more mindful if you're Christian that you have a target on your back and he's going to get kicked up and down. So discipline has been a big issue. When we talk about who's that enforcer, we've seen the U.S. take it way too far, and it's cost them in the very next game. So going away from home, not getting results in this competition. Remember Trinidad and Tobago?
Yeah,
Serginho Dest lost his mind, ended up potentially costing the U.S. men's national team. So a lot of lessons learned from this match, but now it's about putting the sword in for the second.
They got the clean sheet. They won.
It's about putting the sword in.
They won. It's done.
Yeah, just all positives.
Yeah.
So good. This is a good chat, though.
Yeah.